It is meaningful to me that those copies were highly respected, and recreating original designs was never considered a disreputable profession, as some have considered it in the United States, but rather it represented the diligence and talent of sophisticated professionals that were capable of knowing, for example, exactly which acanthus leaf or which type of acanthus leaf was appropriate for Louis XIV, XV, or XVI, or knew the difference between a Louis XVI or XV or transitional leg style or the proper ornamentation for a period mirror or frame. It is only natural that reproducers could also restore because they were imbued with the seemingly imperceptible details that distinguish the characteristics so important to each period, and could recreate them if necessary. It has also required painstaking research, and any restorer worth his salt is also a collector of books and art, a collector in his own right of objects that inspire and instruct him. Perhaps the most famous of cabinet makers and restorers of his own furniture was André Charles Boulle, one of the most famous French furniture makers. He reigned from 1642 to 1732. He was the inevitable child prodigy that came from generations of cabinet makers, immigrants from the Netherlands, who become the youngest and perhaps the most important of royal cabinet makers to be. André Charles Boulle was brought to the attention of Louis XIV by the imposing and prolific minister Colbert. When Boulle received his title of Carpenter in Ebony at the tender age of 24, Colbert referred to Boulle as the most able in his profession in all of Paris. Quite the achievement. He would obtain lodging at the Galleries du Louvre, Gilder and Sculptor of the King, his title. André Charles Boulle would subsequently be conferred with the title of the King's Cabinet Maker. When his predecessor died, it was Boulle that designed the first commode, replacing the coiffure, as well as a bureau plat or writing desk, the first to determine function and placement of gilded bronze, ornamentation on furniture, and most notably for perfecting the Italian technique of marquetry and exalting this innovation to new heights. Veneering and marquetry became a separate trade, emerging from the profession of menuiserie, what we refer to as jointery or basic cabinet making here in the States. This new craft took the term ebenisterie from the words of the wood used in veneering in the 16th century. Thus began the division between the jointers who constructed the pieces and the artisans who adorned them with veneer and subsequently and eventually marquetry. In general, both trades are termed cabinet making in the United States. With the ascent of André Charles Boulle rose the new profession of ebenisterie. Boulle marquetry was a unique marriage of elements that were previously unthinkable and unimaginable. Precious metals, copper, brass, or tin, South American exotic colored woods such as violet, lemon, amaranth, satinwood, rosewood, just to name a few, coupled with a well and highly prized materials such as tortoiseshell, horn, bone, and tusk. These remarkable creations were so unique that it provoked a generation of marquetry fever. Boulle spawned what would become known as the Boulle style, colored woods encrusted with various metals and precious materials. However, this intricate and costly technique required maintenance, making Boulle the first cabinet maker to readdress his own creations. André Charles Boulle was also a rabid collector, an exquisite designer, fine sculptor, and caster chiseler. He had perhaps the finest private collection of books, antique sketches, paintings, sculptures, and objects of art of his generation. His collection left him in the financial dire straits for most of his long life, and were all but completely lost when his studio in the Galerie du Louvre was consumed by fire. This venerated furniture maker merged forever in France the notions of artisan and artist. Boule also successfully circumvented the rigid and imposing rules and standards of the corporation that oversaw all the manual professions. He was protected by his status as the king's cabinet maker and could do what the other cabinet makers could not. And that was expressing their talents simultaneously through various professions, which was unthinkable for others to cross métiers for fear of reprisals, both financial and legal. He was unrestrained from the rules of producing only a set number of pieces, avoiding taxes that were imposed on all construction, and freed from the imposed style and materials that the period as others who belonged to the corporation. Boule created his own rules and styles and constantly fed the Sun King's lust for lavish avant-garde designs. It was a very special experience for me to read and hear so much about Boule and the other great French master artisans, given the lives and the body of work of our great furniture makers that were almost completely unknown to us. Even their names were lost to us, and I have always found that so distressing. There were so many great contributors to the patrimony of America, and my only way of demonstrating my respect for them was to reproduce as faithfully as I could their works of art. Much of the historic documentation in France pertaining to their great artisans and their atelier serves modern artisans in ways that are practical. Inventories reflect which woods were used, lists of tools and materials. And when glues were finally used in France after more than a century of regarding it as trickery for inferior construction, the documentation revealed which glues were used as an essential part of proper restoration. In essence, the information that can be traced is important to restorers, and it is exciting to behold. Thus, given the exceptional history of André Charles Boule, it is no wonder why his name was chosen for the École Boule in 1891, an institution that established itself in 1886 to offer traditional training in furniture making and the beaux-arts. Although Boule spent the better part of his life working out the prestigious Galeries du Louvre, he came from the Faubourg, which, or more precisely, the Faubourg Saint-Antoine. Faubourg means suburb in French, and indeed, the Faubourg Saint-Antoine has been a suburb of Paris since the Middle Ages. It was outside the wall of Paris and was part of the territory of the Abbey of Saint-Antoine. The abbey, of course, no longer exists, except on ancient maps, and that in the minds of those who were in the know of the history of Paris and of furniture making. This abbey, or more precisely, the abbesses, offered protection to those free artisans who did not belong to the mighty corporation of the king. It was often dangerous not to be a part of this inflexible association located inside the walls of Paris. But it was at risk that many took, both French and many immigrants, as today, artisans from the Middle Ages up until the dissolution of the corporation during the French Revolution. It is because of this seemingly insignificant historic detail that a kind of juxtaposition coexisted between the traditional and those hungry for the innovation. On one hand, the corporation controlled standards of construction and quality, striving to maintain uniformity in all French production and unimpeccable professionals. But on the other hand, it stifled creativity in the process by jealously guarding those limits of change to excessiveness.